Hello and welcome to the Security Breach Podcast. My name is Patrick, and today we've got a lot to talk about. All kinds of things have been going on in the cybersecurity space, so let's go ahead and get started. Today's podcast is brought to you by me. I don't take sponsors and I don't monetize any of my accounts. I make this information freely available for anybody who's interested because there is a severe lack of quality ad-free content in the cybersecurity space. Also, by not taking sponsors, it allows me to be impartial and honest about my thoughts and feelings. So if you are interested in finding out more about this type of stuff, do feel free to subscribe or follow me on Apple Podcasts. So that being said, let's dig right in. Our first piece of news today is about Chrome removing ad blockers. So this is something that's been planned for quite a while now. For those of you who are not aware, Chrome is using an extension system called Manifest v2, and they're updating it to Manifest v3. They have very much intentionally gimped the ability of ad blockers to function in the new Manifest. Basically, the idea is they want to prevent you from blocking ads because they're an ad company, and so they're updating their extension system to make it more difficult. This is the beginning of the end for Chrome. And, we can look back in the past and get an idea of what's happening here. For example, Internet Explorer used to be the most popular web browser. But over time, Microsoft made it worse and worse. They didn't keep up with the trends. And as we all know today, Internet Explorer doesn't even exist anymore. So this is the beginning of the end for Chrome. And this is a classic case of enshittification. So what's going on here is over time, Chrome has dominated the web browser market. And now that they have a dominant position, they are no longer incentivized to do things that are for the benefit of the user. Rather, they are now milking the user for as much money as they can to make money for their shareholders. Enshittification. So this has wide implications because Chrome is not the only browser that uses the Manifest v3 system for extensions. Every Chrome-derived browser, so Opera, Firefox, not Firefox, Opera, Vivaldi, all of these other web browsers that are based on Chrome, they are also going to be caught up in this, and after that, ad blockers extensions are not going to function on them. So this isn't just Chrome, right? This is most web browsers. And unfortunately, there isn't really anything they can do about it because if they want to maintain compatibility with the same sites that Chrome supports, they're going to have to update their code base to reflect the changes made by Google. So, what are your options? Well, there is Firefox, but the thing about that is that Firefox uses the same Manifest v2 and v3 that Chrome uses for their extensions. Firefox is not going to be dropping Manifest v2, the one that works with ad blockers. They're not dropping that, they don't have any plans to drop that, but as time marches on, fewer and fewer extensions for v2 are going to be maintained. So it is inevitable that eventually Firefox will also lose the capability to block ads. So it's not very good even on that front. And then there's Safari. So if you're a Mac user or an iPad user, you do have access to ad blockers that work in Safari. As far as I'm aware, Safari is not impacted by this change because they use a different extension system. Uh, However, you have to have a Mac to use Safari, so it's not very useful to the vast majority of people. And so what this means for you is that in the future, it's going to be much more difficult to block ads and stay safe online because this is a security issue. It's very common for advertisements to contain malicious code or malicious links. It's called malvertising. It's estimated that 1 in every 100 ads attempts to exploit your computer. And, when you consider how many ads you see every day, then that's a pretty sizable amount of ads attempting to impact your machine. And so let's say you forget to update Chrome and you visit a site and there's 1 in 100 chance that for each ad that they're going to try to exploit your browser. So now, let's say it's only successful 1% of the time. So we've got a 1 in a thousand's chance, right? You're going to see 1,000 ads pretty quick. And so this is a pretty serious security issue, and it impacts basically every browser out there. So it's not a good state of affairs. We're in a little bit of trouble there, but hopefully somebody will be able to come out with a browser that dethrones Chrome. I would love for it to be Firefox, but I just don't see that happening. All right, for our next tidbit of info, we have some information about fake AI editor ads on Facebook pushing password stealers. First of all, why is anybody using Facebook? I feel like that's exclusively for the boomers at this point. But what's going on here is that there are ads on Facebook, similar story to what we just talked about, that are pushing AI editor applications. And what will happen is when you install this AI editor application, well, it's going to steal all of your passwords from Chrome and Edge and any other browser on your system. If you're not aware, I actually made several videos recently testing a custom password stealer against different operating systems and antiviruses. If you're interested in seeing more of those tests, then definitely check out my channel on YouTube, CybersecPat. And if you're interested in that kind of thing, definitely leave me a subscribe. It means a lot to me. But the problem here is multifaceted. First of all, these advertisements on Facebook should be getting blocked by Facebook before anyone sees them. But obviously, Facebook's process for vetting ads is quite lacking because these advertisements come through anyway. So again, why is anybody using Facebook? I have no idea. Um, but the problem here is also that the web browsers such as Chrome and Edge don't do an adequate job of protecting the passwords that they store. And, those that password storage is on by default. I would bet good money that the majority of people who are using Chrome or Edge are saving their passwords in Chrome and Edge. And that's just a bad idea because it is so easy for a password stealer to go in and steal that list of passwords from those browsers. Yes, it is encrypted, but that encryption is laughably easy to break. I have some videos where I give live demos of how this stuff works and I show the code, and it is shockingly simple. Anybody can do it, and that's why we see this being so pervasive across the industry. All right, for our next story, we have consumers being targeted by ransomware. That is on the rise. So one of the main ransomware groups that are targeting consumers is Magnibur, using the Magnitude ransomware. Uh, so they're spreading by deploying this ransomware through cracked software or pornography ads. So what's happening here is somebody is going online and they're looking for a piece of software, a game, whatever it may be, and they want to get it for free. So they find a sketchy site that says that they'll give it to them for free. They download it, they run it, and then all of their files get encrypted, and they have to pay about a $1,000 ransom, which is shockingly low compared to the ransoms that these organizations usually demand. But also, it's kind of rare for a ransomware group to be targeting consumers rather than businesses, because obviously, when you target a business, you can get a whole lot more money out of them. But unfortunately, even us individual people are not safe. And if you're going online and you're trying to find cracked software, just stop. Don't do that. It's such a risk, and it's not going to pay off. The money that you save by getting a cracked piece of software is generally going to be less than the $1,000 ransom that you'll end up paying And that's not even considering the fact that all of your files, all of your passwords, all of your accounts are now compromised and in the hands of some Chinese hacker. Another way this spreads is through pornography advertisements. And, the reoccurring theme here is that they're trying to catch you when you've got your guard down. They're either trying to get you uh, by appealing to your wants for free software or appealing to your sexual wants through pornography ads. And both of those situations are things where a person is less likely to be as on guard against these types of things. So, these are really just old school con artist tricks, right? Like this is something that has been going on for, hundreds and hundreds of years. It's not really new, but the thing is, it still works, and it's just the digital equivalent of these con artist tricks. All right, up next we have an ISP that was hacked by Chinese espionage groups. So that's not good. We don't know what ISP it was yet, but an ISP, Internet Service Provider, was compromised by a Chinese espionage group. And what they did is once they got into the ISP, they started sending out malicious updates to various routers. So you might be wondering, well, what's the danger there? Well, if your router is compromised, then it can very easily snoop on all of your traffic leaving and entering your home. And what that means for you is that all of your web traffic is going to be in the hands of Chinese hackers. And look, you might be saying to yourself, well, I don't have anything to hide. Why does it matter to me? And it's not about trying to hide something, right? It's about privacy. And the fact of the matter is that privacy is a prerequisite for dignity. Without privacy, you do not have dignity. For example, when you go and use the restroom, you don't leave the door open while you're shitting. You close the door, you maybe even lock it. And it's not because you're trying to hide something, but it's because, a prerequisite for dignity is to have privacy. So even if you don't have anything to hide, you can still be very badly impacted by these state sponsored espionage groups. And the thing about it is that when your ISP gets hacked and they push a malicious update to your router, there's nothing you can do about that. That is completely outside of your control. And the only thing that you can really do is get a different router, one that doesn't get its updates from the ISP. And I can guarantee you 99% of people are never going to do that because they have no idea what a router even is. They don't know what it does. They don't know that it even gets updates. And so this is a very serious situation where 99% of people are not well enough equipped to deal with it. So if you are listening to this and you have a router provided by your ISP, I would highly, highly recommend that you reconsider using that and get yourself a proper router. Something like a Unify Ubiquity router. Those are not good for business, but in a home setting, they can be quite useful. All right, for our next story today, we have that hackers have bypassed Google email verification to create Workspace accounts and hijack identities. So let's talk a little bit about what that actually means. So basically, what the attackers are doing is they're going to sign up for a Google Workspace account using the email address of somebody at a business. And the problem here is that the Google Workspace account was not properly validating that the user who signed up has control of that email address. So you might be wondering, what's the problem here? Well, when you have a Google Workspace account with a legitimate business's email address, then you can use that to sign into different services and cloud platforms using single sign on. And the impact there is that, a lot of these single sign on portals, they will allow you access to the data of an account found in them through single sign on. And so these attackers are able to hijack the identities and the data of the accounts which they are pretending to be. Uh, so Google said that only a few thousand accounts were created. Oh yeah, only a few thousand. It's not widespread or anything. Yeah, when we're talking 4 digits, that's pretty scary. And again, the problem is once this account is created, the attackers have the ability to use single sign on to get into different web services, which are probably going to allow them access to the data that the actual owner of the account would legitimately have access to. So it's a very bad situation, and it just goes to show, it's not a question of if you're going to get hacked, it's a question of when. Because there's the reoccurring theme here in this episode is that a lot of this stuff is outside of your control. If your ISP gets hacked, there's nothing you can do about that. If Google gets hacked, there's nothing you can do realistically about that. And if Chrome decides to drop Manifest v2 extensions, yeah, well, there's nothing you can do about that either. And so it's not a question on if you're going to get hacked; it's a question of when. And unfortunately, all of us will eventually suffer a cybersecurity breach, which is why it is important that you have proper plans in place for when this stuff happens. You need to be prepared to address these inevitable issues, and in order to do that, you need to do some fairly advanced stuff. Stuff that it's not reasonable for the average person to be expected to do. Namely, you'll want to do some threat modeling, map out your attack surface, and generally just get an idea of what you have at risk. And again, that's not something that 99% of people are going to be interested in doing. But if you're listening to this podcast, maybe you're in that 1% of people who care. And so, if you're interested in learning more about threat modeling and contingency planning, then definitely subscribe to my channel on YouTube, CybersecPat, or subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts. I'll try to share as much information as I can to help arm you and give you the tools that you need to keep yourself safe. And that's what this is all about. We're trying to inform you, we're trying to get you prepared, and we're trying to give you a realistic look at the cybersecurity landscape. So, thank you for listening. This has been the Security Breach Podcast, Episode 5. My name is Patrick. I really appreciate you making it this far. And if you want to hear more things like this, consider hitting that subscribe button. Anyway, thank you for listening. I'll catch you in the next one.